Well, staying with Syria, Kurdish authorities there say they've reached a deal with the transitional government in Damascus on evacuating Syrians from the sprawling ISIS prison camps that the Kurds have been guarding for years. These camps are home to some 37,000 people, many of them the wives and children of ISIS fighters who were either captured or surrendered in 2019. Along with Syrians, the camps are home to Iraqis and nationals from Western nations. This week, Turkey said it would establish military bases inside Syria to help Damascus fight ISIS. Well, to talk more about that, we're joined by Giran Özkan from the Kurdish Peace Institute. Good to see you again, Giran. And before we get on to talking about ISIS, I know there is a message that you would like to convey.
Yeah, thank you very much, Laura, for having me and giving me the opportunity to pay tribute to Yaron, who was brutally murdered here in DC last week alongside his girlfriend, Sarah. I was one of many people that was touched by Yaron's kindness, and I just would like to send my love and condolences to his family, his friends, and his colleagues at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
I'm sure that the family will appreciate that. A very sad story indeed, Giran. Let's talk about these ISIS camps then, Giran. These are huge ISIS prisons. Tens of thousands of captured ISIS fighters and their families have been there for years. These camps have been guarded by Kurdish authorities. Where will they go now that they're released?
So, as you quite rightly said in your report, this is a camp that holds almost 40,000 people, and these are largely the children and the family members and wives of ISIS fighters that caused havoc in the region. You know, the deal encompasses the family members initially, not the ISIS fighters themselves. And this is seen as a significant opportunity for the interim authorities in Damascus, who have had jihadist backgrounds themselves. And they see this as an opportunity to show the world that they're not just talking the talk, but they're willing to conduct and follow up that talk with actions by holding these people accountable, by integrating them, by de-radicalizing them. Now, obviously, this is going to be a huge task for people that come from a similar background. So while the deal itself is important, it's a starting step, it's largely seen as low-hanging fruit in the negotiations between the SDF and the interim authorities in Damascus, as this will be a starting step for the authorities in Damascus to show that they are willing to back their words up and help in de-radicalizing the rest of Syria.
Do you think Ahmed al-Shaara's government is capable of that? Because there has been some criticism that he isn't even able to control of these various militias that have been carrying out atrocities in places like Latakia earlier this year.
Well, as I said, I mean, this is going to, you know, when we always say that the proof is going to be in the pudding, well, this is exactly that now. And as I said, it's, you know, this is by no means going to be one of the most difficult parts of the negotiations between the Kurdish authorities and Syria, but it's definitely going to indicate whether Damascus is able to follow up on some of the promises that it's been distributing across the world, whether it's meeting with Western partners or even in your previous report in its engagements with Israeli security officials. The authorities, you know, al-Shaara-led government in Damascus has been making huge promises. But when we look at their past is deeply embedded in similar ideologies that are being contained in these camps right now. So the family members that are going to be handed over to Damascus are people from areas that are controlled by Damascus, which by no means is all of Syria at this point. So it's going to be very interesting to follow this up. This is a deal that's been made on paper, but its implementation and how serious Damascus is in reintegrating these people and de-radicalizing them will go a long way to show everyone whether al-Shaara is up to the job.
And how would you say that the cooperation between the Kurdish authorities and the government in Damascus is progressing? There was an agreement signed back in March, of course, which covered various issues. Do you think that's on track? Is there a level of trust there?
Well, yeah, the agreement was signed, but as everyone knows, it's been slow walked. In some places, there have been steps that have been taken back. There was a de-escalation in the Syrian dam. There was some joint efforts in administering that dam. But deals like that came about after the initial agreement have all but collapsed. They've, at the very least, regressed. And so, as I said, this kind of deal is pretty much low-hanging fruit, and in the next few weeks and months, we're going to see headings that are going to be way more difficult in even in discussions between the Kurdish authorities in Damascus, like the natural resources that are dominantly in the Kurdish regions, like military integration of the 100,000 or so SDF fighters. All of these are going to be much tougher to negotiate. But this initial implementation of this deal is going to indicate to everyone, including the Kurds, whether Damascus is serious about turning Syria into an inclusive, moderately democratic country that is tolerant of all of its diverse components of its population. Up until now, and in the first 6 months of the transition, all the indications that we've seen, especially in the coastal regions against the Alawites, in the Sueda province against the Druze, and even up until a few weeks ago, in and around Manbij and the Syrian dam, we've seen that the HTS remnants and the Turkish-backed proxies haven't been very willing to accept the platform that this new Syria can emerge on, which is inclusivity and tolerance to differences. So we'll watch very closely how this deal is implemented. What happens to these ISIS family members is going to be very important, because as we know from inside these camps, violence is still rampant. Even children that have been indoctrinated with jihadism have now come to ages where they can potentially, if not reintegrated and de-radicalized, can wreak havoc for Syria and the region as a whole. So a lot of responsibility falls on the Damascus administration to really follow their word up with actions.
And a quick word on Turkey, Giran, because President Erdogan seeking to insert himself in the situation. He wants to build military bases in Syria, Turkish military bases, he says, to help Syria fight ISIS.
Well, I mean, if you look at the way Turkey's been operating in the region over the last decade or so, it can't be categorized as helping anyone. Rather, Turkish interventions have done nothing but destabilize the region and killed many civilians in the process. One thing I will underline right now is that one of Turkey's biggest excuses to invade neighboring countries like Syria and Iraq has been the PKK. And as we've talked on this program before, there is a significant process now being played out between the PKK, the now disbanded PKK, I must add, and the Turkish government. And already there have been retired Turkish generals and some pro-government media talking heads saying that their excuse to invade has, unfortunately for them, been taken away. So it'll be very interesting to see how Turkey now treats this new environment. No more reason to invade neighboring countries. It'll be, you know, for us at least, it's going to be very interesting to see how Turkey adapts to this new reality and whether it is really serious about helping stabilize neighboring countries.
Giran, great to talk to you as always. Thank you very much. Giran Ozkanler.
Thank you for having me.